Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Exile Show. I want to talk today, my topic for today, and the reason I wanted to do a video today is to talk about the right-wing socialist. This is something that I think is very descriptive and very important because we have, in the US at least, what is considered the right and the left. The left is considered anti-gun, pro-baby killing, pro-socialism, right? And the right, they're the right wing, the conservatives, right? So it's kind of this, it's really this right brain, left brain. Like the creative hippies are over here and the logical thinking people that are doing the real work are the right wing. That's the idea, anyhow. The problem is the right wing, the Tea Party, the Patriot movements. And I've seen this as someone who was a very strong voice in, I guess you could say, the Patriot movement, the Patriot right, the Second Amendment movement. I saw this shift more and more over the past decade or so. And what is called Republicans, the right, the Tea Party, Patriots, has now been completely hijacked by what are actually right-wing socialists. When I say right-wing socialists, I mean that, well, they have, they're like, oh, we believe in capitalism. We want to have money. We want to have rights. They don't actually mean that, right? They talk about rights in the Constitution, but they don't mean it. They only mean rights for people that they like and that are in their party. The rights don't apply to anyone else. So the right-wing socialists, which is pretty much all of the right now, you have to understand this. And this is a term I'd like to see us start using more even, and that I hope more people are talking about, because you see all these people promoting, oh, Trump's going to mass deport immigrants, right? The right usually identifies with conservative Christian patriot, but there's nothing Christ-like in the right-wing socialist. The right-wing socialist worships the state. They believe that the police are good. They believe that Republicans are going to make the country better. They believe that mass deportations are freedom, right? Even though they're complete violation of every possible area of the Constitution that you could probably think of. They are, let me see if I can find this here. Look at this headline I saw today. Border czar. Why do we have border czar, right? All border agents are criminals. It's an illegal agency, just like so many of the others. The difference is this one traffics in human beings, like child services. So the children of illegal immigrants who are being deported could be put in halfway homes. Now, Trump has always had a policy of trafficking the children of immigrants. And now they're just being open about it, right? We're not going to detain your U.S. citizen children. They're going to be put in a halfway house. So what he's saying is they're going to steal the children from the families. So it's this very conflicty thing. The right-wing socialists, which is what the right is now, everything is about the party, not patriotism, but nationalism. We're great. We're better. Have you seen this theme where the first argument, if you say, wait a minute, people should have a right to travel, the problem isn't actually immigrants, it's the politicians, it's the government, it's the corruption, it's the violation of our rights. They'll say, no borders, no nation. They repeat this propaganda that's been created in the past 40 to 50 years by the globalist elite, which is the propaganda of separating people by their borders, turning people against their neighbors, keeping us fighting with each other so we don't look at what these scumbags are doing to us. They've done that in the name of left-wing, right-wing, lots of propaganda, lots of talk show. It's been a slow process, and people have gradually gone from when I was a kid in the 90s of saying, yeah, whatever, if people are illegal, those guys are hard workers. We like them. They're welcome in our community. That was the mindset of like the farmers in central Washington in the 90s. So what they have to do? Well, they had to create more terrorists, 9/11, fear, more propaganda, violence, crime, and so that both the left, the creative kind of leftist Democrats, they were angry with the right, and the right was angry with them, but ultimately they all just wanted to protect their free stuff. The right-wing socialist is vehemently in defense of national sovereignty. Right? Wrong. The only national sovereignty that matters is the one that's for their party and that affects them and helps them have nicer things and more freebies. It's not about sovereignty. This has been proven in the recent months as you see Trump trying to threaten other countries to comply with his will, which is actually completely unconstitutional and illegal. And all these people saying, yeah, we're the greatest. These other countries have to comply with us. Wait a minute. What about national sovereignty? I thought borders were all about national sovereignty. You have to understand that the message now is not national sovereignty, that each nation, the point of a border was never to prevent immigration. That's a modern invention. A border was just a dividing line so you could say, look, this is our people, our culture, our rights, right? This is how we manage this land, and here's our border. You don't ever watch a John Wayne movie and see him asking permission to cross back and forth into Mexico. I'm serious, think about it. This didn't exist. This concept that people couldn't travel, they couldn't come to the US to work without special permission, that you couldn't live without government. The concept is absolutely fascist and mentally ill, that someone comes to the US, they live there for years, they work hard, they have a family, but they don't have the right papers, so they get ripped, their family is ripped from their arms, and they're sent back to where they came from, where they have nothing. Everything they have is taken away, and their kids are trafficked into child services. If you think that's freedom, you're truly insane. It takes a very high level of just massive an ignorance that is to an insane level to actually believe that. And another argument I hear is like, oh, well, you can't enter Mexico without permission. Actually, that's total BS. Technically, there's immigration rules in Mexico, and technically you can be deported. But Mexico has open borders. You can cross pretty much whenever you want. In fact, most of the US border crossings, all the infrastructures to prevent you from leaving when you cross the US border. At many border crossings, you can just drive right in. There's no one going to stop you. Occasionally they'll flag you over and maybe want to look in your vehicle or something like that, which they shouldn't be doing, don't get me wrong. But you have to understand that all the things, anyone that's supporting the border patrol, border restrictions, immigration restrictions, deportations, you have to have papers to be here. Anyone in supporting this is part of the right-wing socialists. They don't even, some of them I think are truly filled with hate. Others I don't even think realize it, because they've been fed these lines like no border, no national sovereignty. Nobody's talking about taking away the border. They're talking about not taking away the rights that we literally fought a revolution to enforce, right? They say, oh, you can't go into Mexico without permission. Well, yes, you can. That's why 20,000 immigrants are currently crossing Mexico and without permission and papers heading toward the US like they do every year in the migrant caravan. And the local politicians are actually helping them because they don't dare do anything else, because they know that these people come in numbers and they would be stupid to resist it because they have a right to travel. That doesn't mean there's not a lot of immigration crap that officially exists in Mexico, because the US is literally using your tax dollars to pay for programs and bribe Mexican politicians to create immigration policies that sort of reflect the United States, even though they're not really enforced. Yes, you can enter Mexico without permission in ports of entry. So like I literally came here. You can cross the Mexico-Guatemalan border. You can literally pay a guy a couple bucks and cross the river in a boat. Is there technically rules? Yes. Are they enforced? Not really. But that's not the point. So this is these are all straw man arguments that are fed to the ignorant, that don't actually study history, that don't realize that the founding fathers literally thought that the idea of even registering as an immigrant was basically a criminal act. And Jefferson actually said this is void. It has no force. The government can't do this. They can't even tell people they have to fill out a form. That's how serious the founding fathers. So the right-wing socialists, they're not actually for any national sovereignty except their own, and only for the people that agree with them, right? The border is for them. Other nations we invade, we steal their oil, we bomb them, we manipulate them, we start wars, we unseat their presidents like Hillary Clinton did in, I think it was Honduras. We cause national unrest. We create chaos so that we can control them. So we're literally meddling in across the borders all over the world. We have zero respect. The United States has zero respect for national sovereignty unless another nation is big enough to kick our ass and to cause us real problems. So you have to understand that when right-wing socialists are repeating this idea of national sovereignty, borders, you can't go into Mexico without permission, it's completely irrelevant whether you can or can't. You can't go into North Korea without permission either. And it's a sucky place. That doesn't mean that that's acceptable. Stop being stupid. You just sound ridiculous. And one thing I've noticed even more in the past year or so is when I make actual legal arguments, when I say, wait a minute, here's what the Founding Fathers said, wait a minute, the Constitution forbids all immigration restriction. No one actually discusses facts. No one actually wants to have a debate. They're just raging, seething lunatics saying I'm an idiot, saying I'm a leftist. They don't even know who I am. And it's honestly sad, but it's kind of hilarious. What the right-wing socialist believes is not in God. They believe in the state. They believe in feeling superior. They believe in making sure that they're free programs. What's their main agenda? Criminals, right? But what's it really come down to? They're taking our stuff. They're taking our socialism, right? It's all about the socialism for the right-wing socialist. The main argument is they're coming here and they're taking from us. That's actually not true. Most of these young people and old people and middle-aged people that try to go to the States or go to the States are hard workers. I know a lot of them. And then they do that. They try and build a life for themselves. They try and follow the rules and respect other people. What do? They have their kids stolen from them. Their businesses stolen. Their homes stolen. They're deported. Their lives are ruined. Sometimes they're sent back to places where there's violence and they end up getting killed. The right-wing socialists are actually anti-Christ. Everything that Christ teaches, any of the rights in the Constitution, those don't apply to anybody except them and their friends. So, and you have to understand that right-wing socialists make up most of the U.S. churches. Anyone who is a Republican pretty much at this point, a staunch Republican, right? I know there's gray areas between here and people that don't actually identify. And when I say the word right-wing socialist, people are like, that doesn't exist. That's ridiculous. That's an oxymoron. The left are the socialists. The right are extremely socialist. They are rabid to protect their free stuff, which is their main argument against the immigrant. But again, understand that it's all propaganda. The immigrant's not actually taking their socialism. It's not really affecting their free stuff. The free stuff is just candy given by the corrupt government who's robbing us blind and then gives a few things back to you. So the arguments, like the right-wing socialist isn't based on any kind of education or informed opinions, even though on their talk shows and stuff, they try and act like it is. If you actually bring up the Constitution, if you actually bring up the Bible, if you actually bring up what Christ taught us to do, if you actually bring up human rights, they'll literally scoff at you. And you'll even watch this if you watch these conservative influencers, right? They act like they're the ones all in control, that the left is all crying and crying. But if someone actually comes in, when I actually present the law of the land, the highest law of the land that overrules all other rules, that forbids any form of immigration restriction and authorizes no part of it to the federal government and forbids it in the Bill of Rights, and then the right to travel and many other things, the right to due process. So you have the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, all of these different parts of the Constitution that forbid everything the government's doing. If you actually bring that up, they'll scoff at you. They'll say, oh, the Naturalization Clause. The Naturalization Clause never did and does not have anything to do with immigration. It is only and very exclusively the only authority the federal government had, and the founders, again, were very clear on this. If you go back to the first Congress, which, yes, I went back and read it and searched through it to find these relevant parts, because for a long time, I was kind of sucked into this. And then as the patriots who wanted, borders and language and culture to be protected, that I kind of grew up around that, as they got more and more rabid and hateful towards people and wanting to actually hurt these innocent families, I started thinking something's wrong. This doesn't make any sense. That's what it really started clicking. I started seeing this rabidness and this hatred towards other people, and I'm like, wait, that doesn't jive with this. And so I actually went back and dug all the way back to the first Congress. I went and found if any of the founding fathers ever supported the idea that immigration can be restricted. No. In fact, the only time it was ever brought up in the first Congress it was blatantly acknowledged as a joke. Oh, maybe we should restrict who comes here so we can only have the best people. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what one of them said. I forget his name. And yes, I mean, you have to understand a lot of the founding fathers were kind of elitist a-holes. And then he said, obviously we can't do that. I mean, it was literally a joke. The idea of restricting immigration in any form from Congress, in the first Congress, was brought up one time as a joke. That's it. So we're talking about actual transcripts from the Congress. And yes, if you dig deep enough, you can find those. I have a copy of them somewhere on here, if anybody wants them. So what you have to understand with the right-wing socialist, this is the thing, and this is how do you know if someone's a right-wing socialist? If it's party, if it's borders or everything, our sovereignty is in borders. No borders, no nation. They're taking our stuff. They're coming here and stealing from our children. They're invading us. They're taking our jobs. They're invading. No, they're not invading anything. Anyone has the right to travel on the public thoroughfare in the free land. That's the fundamental right in the Fourth Amendment. And then they say, oh, well, this only applies to citizens. That's BS, even at a basic constitutional law level. And you also forgot that when this was written, there were no citizens. Oops. It's just so, I could show you so many comments. And if you want to see comments, I'll show you. Because I go and make these arguments, and the stuff people come back with is wild, right? Corporate slavery is what right-wing socialists actually are supporting, corporate and political oligarchy in the name of capitalism. But they're not actually real capitalists. Right? Most of the people screaming this are full of getting freebies and all for the government programs. They don't want to lose those. It's really important to them not to lose those. So if you go to look at the comments that are left on these things, and you'll notice that I'll make these arguments, right? And you can go see this. It's not a secret. I'm not just making crap up. Like, I've actually studied this. This didn't actually start till like the 70s and 80s. And the drug war. But you have to understand that any immigration restriction of any kind is a violation of Article 1, Section 8.4, the 4th, 5th, 6th, 8th, and 9th Amendments at a minimum. But look at the comments that you see when I write this stuff, when I actually do these informed posts. I'm a Democrat, out to destroy the country. Nobody's actually making, this is what's wild to me. No one argues anymore, guys. I'll make these really well-researched arguments. I don't just come up with this stuff. And I'm like, hey guys, this is what it says. No one cares what it says. No one cares what the law is. They say immigrants have to follow the law. They're not breaking the law. The law is void. All the immigration laws are illegal under the Constitution. And the founding fathers, who literally said if a law violates the Constitution, it's immediately void. You don't have to wait for it to go to the courts. It is not a valid law. There's no such thing as illegal immigrants. This is the tenor. Yes, there is. Illegal is breaking the law. I want you to stop and think about that. This guy here. Illegal is breaking the law. What he's saying is illegal is violating what a politician tells you. There's absolutely zero thought. It's just repeating. So if you're saying things like, borders are how we protect our national... No one's talking about borders. Immigration has nothing to do with whether you have a border. All you're doing is repeating NW propaganda that was planted right into your head. Oh, but they come and use our hospital, our health care. No, that's bullcrap too. Our health care sucks. And they come there and work too. They're not taking any more than you are. And you don't deserve socialism either. You see what I'm saying here? You see what I'm saying here? It doesn't matter what they say. Oh, cartels. Oh, Gulf cartel. Oh, Mexico. None of this has any relation to the facts. It's like saying, oh, we have to restrict your guns because terrorism, because school shootings. Right? So these people, a lot of times the right-wing socialists is talking about Second Amendment. They don't actually support the Second Amendment. They support the NRA. They support their party's political movement. right? A felon shouldn't have a gun. Felon means absolutely nothing. You can be a felon for absolutely nothing in a court system that is not based on law anymore, or on the Bill of Rights, or on the Constitution that completely does whatever it wants to fill for-profit prisons. Obviously, a felon is, under the Second Amendment, allowed to have a gun. This idea of a felon, again, it's invented. The restricted rights of a felon, these are invented concepts of a modern globalist government. And all they're doing, anyone that believes in these immigration restrictions, deportations, and all this, it's not Donald Trump that invented this propaganda, but he's good at propagating it. People fall for it easily from him. They're just repeating the talking points of the globalist elite. And I hesitate to even say talking points, because there's no points. There's no facts. There's no history. So the conservative talk shows and stuff always, we got to know history, borders, language, and culture. They don't care about culture. They don't care about our history. They don't care about the Constitution. They care about the party. They care about the right-wing socialist movement and protecting that movement. Those are the only people who get rights. Everybody else doesn't deserve them because they're traitors to the homeland. You see what's happening here? Do you see the hate they're creating and the way they're dividing us against each other? And I understand a lot of this just comes from ignorance, and people just we tend to believe what we're brought up with and what we're told, and nobody free thinks. But it's so much worse than it was in the 90s. You could sit down and have a conversation. There's not even a conversation. It's literally just a raging lynch mob, brother against brother now, you guys. Even though it's mostly still on Facebook. It's not going to stay that way. That is what a right-wing socialist is. How you identify them, and to educate them, you just need to don't do what they do. Just always contest with facts. Call them the right-wing socialists that they are. And don't fall for their stuff. No, zero immigration restriction is legal. Don't do this halfway. I'm a libertarian. I believe we have to have reasonable restriction. No, there is no reasonable restriction. That's why we wrote the Fourth Amendment. Not because it gave us the absolute right to travel without the permission of government, but because we already had it, and it was meant to be a reminder that was inviolate. And we're ignoring that. There is no legal immigration restriction. A person walking across the road is not an invader. He's not breaking into your home. He's not stealing your stuff. He never was. That's absolute nonsense. And when you support this, who you actually support is child services, government human trafficking, for-profit prisons, and political lies. They're sucking you in to make you a part of the right-wing socialist movement. A lot of you watching this are probably falling for it. I get it. I fell for it too when I was young, until it just got so extreme that I'm like, whoa, this doesn't seem anything like freedom. It doesn't seem anything like Jesus. By the way, the Bible also forbids what we're doing to the immigrants in every way. It's just there's literally no historical just precedent. Anyone that's treated these people this way in all of history always goes down in history as psychopath tyrants. But people don't know history. And frankly, they don't care. So that is the right-wing socialist. I've been using that phrase, and I wanted to take the time to explain it and why it is factually accurate and why all of this that we're being fed is a complete lie. Stay safe, you guys. Love your neighbor. Let's stop hating each other. Peace.